Thad, we're ready to go.
All right. Welcome everyone to December 21st edition of Bar Talk. And what we have is a new executive order that Angela is going to bring us up to date on, as well as a whole bunch of new PMOs or revised PMOs. And one of the big ones that I'm not even sure was published officially today, but it's going to be, we got a heads up on yesterday, is PMO SJC 9. In that PMO, for anyone that has an attorney card, that allows you to get in separately from the cattle door that everyone has to go through for metal detection, etc. You're being closed off. I guess everyone, I think, is being closed off from any other entrance except one. And I believe starting tomorrow, we're all having our temperatures taken, as well as going through the one door. And that's monitored by the marshals. And we're going to handle reviewing a number of family law matters. We're going to address a couple family law effects from these new PMO changes, but also we're going to have Bill Nugent as our speaker about some wellness, all packed into one half-hour segment. So Angela, I'll let you start off with Executive Order 19A.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. So 19A is a change to EO 19, and EO 19 was the simplifying and strengthening enforcement of face coverings. And basically what that did is required certain public entities to require people to wear face coverings. There was an exception to the order, actually a few exceptions where face coverings were not required for persons A, under the age of 2, and then B and C. And B and C basically said those who have trouble breathing or related medical conditions or otherwise unable to put on or remove a mask. And C was those with developmental issues that are complicated or irritated by a face covering. Those two parts, B and C, were canceled, deleted from the initial 19 order. So that's the only change to 19A. And Thad, would you like me to move on to the court closings at this point real quick?
Yeah, if you could, and let them know what's going on with the courts.
Okay. Sure. So, sorry, I've got people entering. I made another slide. If you go to the Bar Talk slides at the end of this, you will be able to click on the links. But on slide 2 here, I have listed all the court closings, and these are available on the website. Please go in and look at this because a lot of courts are closed on specific days this week, and they're not. It could be Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, or Monday and Tuesday, and then some are closed all the way, through almost the end of December. So please go ahead and check on those court closing dates because it can get a little confusing.
Thank you, Angela. I'll interject here. One of the things I meant to announce is that I'm broadcasting here from the Cleves Law Library. That's why I have my mask on. And also, I've been told that one of the things that you should do is pay attention to the judicial branch website for changes related to hours like the day before holidays, that possibly there may be an early closing like at noontime before holidays. So please keep a lookout for that for the courthouse that you're trying to go to. Can I go to the first slide again, Angela? Yep, I see it. All right. So one of the, I'm going to start off with SJC 3. It's for those of you that haven't looked at it, it changes really the way we can do things. So it adds the ability to file by email. And I had the ability to test that out. I sent a filing by email yesterday, and I got confirmation at 9:59 this morning that it was received and being processed. So it does work. Now I'm going to just give you a couple highlights about it. So first off, uh, what you want to do is always use e-filing, in the places where it's accepted. So for the business court, for District 5, wherever e-filing is accepted, use it. If e-filing does not apply, then you have the ability to use this PMO SJC3, which allows you to file by email. Now, some of the highlights on this are every court has their own email address, and those email addresses are found in the back of this order. And you can file, you've got to look at the exceptions, but basically it looks like you can file just about anything except things that cost money. So if your filing is going to cost money, you need to go to the court to file it. So that would be like new complaints, motions that cost money, those type of things. And then the other big tip on this one is that you actually need to use a transmittal form. So there are 2 transmittal forms that were developed that you can find at the Judicial Branch website. And one of them is CV-FM-254. And that allows you to transmit filings by email for civil cases and family cases. And the CR-256 allows you to transmit filings for criminal cases. And now, one of the other tips that I wanted to throw out there to you is that there are very specific pieces of information that need to be provided in e-mailing filings. That is also found in this PMO. And what I did as a practice tip for my practice is I actually took another look at my automatic email signature, and I enhanced it to comply with all the requirements that they're asking in this PMO. I did hear last week from a clerk that a lot of these e-files or email filings are being rejected for one reason or another. So the other thing that you'll find on your transmittal sheet for the family matter, civil matter, or criminal matter case is you'll actually find a table of deadlines to respond, which is actually kind of handy for opposing counsel that receives one of these emails. So as you know, along with our Rule 5 obligations, you also need to copy opposing counsel or an unrepresented party on filings by email. So that's what I have for PMO SJC3. There was also a brand new PMO 3A, and I know Amy Robidas was going to touch base on that with regard to her representation of the family law section as family law chair. Thank you for being with us, Amy.
Thank you, Thad. And a lot of SJC 3A it's very similar to SJC 3, except it's specifically for protection from abuse or protection from harassment cases. A couple of reminders just even before I get into the PMO. Filing by email is different than e-filing. E-filing and email filing are different than the process for when you file a proposed order. Proposed orders, at least in family law cases, which is primarily what I do, are sent to a specific different email address, and that requires the filer to only send fillable PDFs or Word docs. Now, and that, so it's just a different process. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. SJC 3A, as I said, is the process for PFAs and PFHs. You want to take a look at the appendix, because there are different email addresses for the same courts, but these email addresses are different than SJC3. So if you're doing email filing in a PFA or PFH, you want to make sure you're sending it to the right place. Like in the other civil cases, you can file by email just about anything except for those things that require a fee. You also need to make sure that if you are filing your trial exhibits, for the majority of civil cases, that's controlled by SJC 7, which I'll talk about a little later. In the deadline for PFAs and PFHs is shorter. It's 2 days prior to trial. You have to send hard copies of the exhibits to the court. This PMO does allow for electronic signatures. Electronic signatures are detailed also in PMO 2. So there's a lot of crossover in these PMOs. So you want to just spend some time looking through them. This does allow for a party to notarize these complaints without doing in-person notarization, and it's a lesson requirement than the other notarization process. I forget which PMO that is. That might be 8. Todd, do you?
Yeah, it's actually Executive Order 37.
Okay.
That allows us to do remote notarization and has the specific direction. Yep.
Okay, and so for this in SJC3A, if you're doing a PFA or a PFH, you can do notarization just as long as you have you swear under the penalty of perjury. There's a specific statement that must be included, but it will allow for you to not have the person appear in front of a notary. Like other civil cases, you have to file a cover sheet with anything you file by email. There's a different form for this though. It's PA 30. Also, I don't know if that mentioned this, but documents that are filed by email you're not required to send a hard copy. You actually should not be sending hard copies. So if you're filing something by email, you don't also send a hard copy to the court. Otherwise, we would completely overwhelm these poor clerks.
Yeah, good point, Amy. That is exactly right. If you send it by email, do not send hard copy.
And again, that's different for if you're doing a proposed order. And I have no idea about e-filing. This PMO talks about the timing wise. If you want a PFA or PFH reviewed by a judge, you have to make sure it's filed before 3. Otherwise, it'll get reviewed the next day. And it has the details regarding service, and that's the same as in 3A. The court will arrange for the service of complaints. Excuse me, this part's different because it's a PFA or PFH. The court will continue to arrange for service of complaints, motions to extend, and complaints for protection from harassment that don't require a filing fee. But any other document that you're filing through email, you have to make sure that you serve properly either by email or mail, depending on whether there's an attorney or not an attorney. And just, I think this is also mentioned in SJC3, make sure you're not having dialogue on these email addresses. it's not going to be accepted by the court, and it's going to get these things shut down pretty quickly if attorneys or parties are, you know, copying clerks as they're going back and forth. So those are the highlights that I found in SJC 3A.
Thank you, Amy. I'd like to jump over to Kelly McDonald, if we could right now, to talk about PMO SJC 2 and how it applies, of course, to these 3 and 3A.
Thanks, Thad. I think the big takeaway that I get from reviewing all of these pandemic management orders, these PMOs, is that there's a fair bit of complexity and that you need to be pretty careful. We should always go back and read the rules, but that applies doubly here, where the rules are being overlaid with some different processes and a lot of exceptions. I do want to note that even though email filing is now available, you can still file normally. So if you want to avoid that complexity, you can just keep doing things in the same way. Amy mentioned the provision for notarization in family law cases. That same provision is also in PMO 3 for any document that you're filing by email that requires a notarization. Now, PMO 2 is an order that has been around and been for a while. It's been revised a number of times. The revision this time is to provide, it's in the last section of PMO 2, it's to provide that parties may now electronically sign a document. Before, only attorneys could electronically sign a document. So now you can take the handwritten signature of your clients out of the equation. There are requirements about, as Thad said, requirements about the information that needs to be included next to an electronic signature. So make sure you're checking that out. Thad asked me to just remind us all of the other provisions of PMO 2. Section A authorizes remote deposition, oaths, and testimony. I'm sure we've all tried a few depositions out remotely. I think that's working pretty well. Section B, that permitted motions in criminal cases that involved liberty issues to be filed by email. That section may now be mooted by PMO 3. Section C is the ending date of the March order that extended court deadlines, and Section D is the end date of the March order that extended law court deadlines. So both of those are pretty moot now. Section E permits remote contacts and interviews in certain proceedings that normally would require face-to-face contacts and interviews. And then Section F establishes that depositions by default must take place remotely, not in person. And then, of course, there are exceptions. That's PMO 2. PMO 4 is about the February bar exam, and it establishes that that bar exam is going to take place remotely. And anybody who does not want to take it remotely can get a refund of their fee. That's what I got for you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kelly. So I had my mute on there. So the other PMO I was to share with you was PMO SJC, excuse me, 8. And one of the primary changes that occurred with that one was that they wanted to allow for court-appointed attorneys to be able to do the same things as retained attorneys, which it might not have been as clear in this PMO. But one of the things I want to point out to is whoever's doing criminal cases, you actually have an attachment A in this PMO, which enables you to follow the instruction of PMO SJC 8 to the T. You will require, though, they are requiring, though, for arraignments that are of a serious nature, felony level, to actually have a signature from the client before you submit it as well. So with that, we can go back to Amy about PMO SJC 7.
Sure, thanks, Thad. PMO SJC 7 is another one that's been around for a while. It was originally issued in July. But as far as I can tell, the most recent revision, which was just the 14th, that was to allow for virtual backgrounds, but only when safety is an issue. So that's in hearings specifically. Um, before that, no virtual backgrounds were allowed, but now if it's necessary for the safety and security of the witness or the party. Also in November, it was updated, and that was to clarify. So SJC 7 is the order that states that most court proceedings should be done remotely. Originally, there was language, well, the language is still there, that there's a presumption against hybrid hearings. The courts don't want some people appearing on Zoom, others on phone, others in person. However, that was a change to the practice where we often would have a single witness testify by phone. So the November change clarified that you could continue to have participation by telephone or video for a single witness. Section C, it talks about how the remote proceedings are conducted. And this is where it clarifies that this is where it states that if you are having one of these remote proceedings, you are supposed to exchange and provide the court with hard copies of exhibits 7 days before the hearing is to occur. Unless it's only offered for rebuttal, then it has to be filed with the court 5 days after the hearing. And this one also talks about public access to in-person court proceedings. So if you do have something where you think the public is going to want to be involved, you just take a look at the rules that this controls how that happens.
Thank you, Amy. All right, so one of the other things I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention overall, I think I brought this up on a couple of previous proceedings, was that there is a standing order regarding small claims cases that you need to use the new form and identify yourself as a debt collector or a creditor. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that you should probably go and take a look at the new judicial branch website. It was new beginning, I think, on like the weekend before last, and you could see it on Monday the 14th. But also there are a whole bunch of new forms. So whoever here uses forms as part of their practice that are developed by the judicial branch, you're going to want to take a look. A lot of them have changed. All right.
Thad, I know we give Bill a chance to talk, but we did have one question. What is the sworn declaration requirement on Form 256 with e-filings? We do not have that in criminal cases.
I think, unless I'm mistaken, and you can jump in, Amy or Kelly, but I think that person is asking about a client that has to sign under penalties of perjury, that what they're saying is correct, as opposed to getting a notarized signature. There is a paragraph for that in the transmittal form CV or FM 254, and in the CR 256. There's actually an attachment A in PMO SJC 8 that has specific language that a defendant needs to sign. If there's something other than that I'm not getting, Amy or Kelly, go ahead and chime in.
I don't have anything to add about that. I did want to mention about the forms, though. That you made a great point, and I know for family law it's a ton of forms, and we had been using a lot on Pine Tree Legal's website. We had been able to access the forms. They are not all updated there right now, so before you're using, for those of you who are doing family law, you do want to check the actual court's website to see if your form has been updated, as a little practice tip.
Yeah, that's a good point, Amy, as a practice tip. So I actually found that out myself this weekend as I was looking for forms, both on the Pine Tree Legal website as well as the Judicial Branch website. Pine Tree Legal's website is not updated with the new forms yet. Thank you,
Well,
Amy.
you're welcome, Thad, but if you would be coming to the family law section meetings every month, we will keep you informed of that stuff as well.
Thank you very much, Amy. That's a good plug for the family law chair and the family law section. All right, with that, unless there's other questions that come up, then let's go ahead and ask our main assistance program director, Bill Nugent, for his mindfulness and wellness update for us. Thank you, Bill.
Great, thanks, Thad. The holiday season at the end of the year is traditionally supposed to be a time of happiness, goodwill, joy, coming together with friends and family. But for some people, actually, it's a time of significant amount of stress and anxiety and even depression. And given 2020, a year like no other, I suspect it may be more of the latter for an awful lot of people. And in order to make it through the holidays, perhaps with a little bit more ease mentally and emotionally, I've got a few suggestions that you might want to consider in terms of addressing the holidays and moving forward. And the first thing I'd say is I think that it's really important for each of us to cut each other some slack, actually cut each other a lot of slack. We've had essentially 10 months of cabin fever, and I suspect that most all of us are not at our best after the year that we've had. So I think it's important to keep in mind that that everybody's under stress, and maybe we should be a little bit less quick to take offense at some comment that may be made harshly to us or things like that. And it's also important to cut ourselves some slack. I think attorneys tend to be real perfectionists. And that can be very helpful in our profession, but in our personal life, it can actually be a real problem. And I think it's important to always keep in mind that the holidays are not about perfection with decorations or celebration. They're about many other things. They're not about whether last week the latkes were a little bit soggy or this Friday the roast has been in the oven a little too long and comes out medium instead of medium rare. That happened to me once a few years ago, and I spent 2/3 of our Christmas dinner beating myself for leaving it in the oven too long. And I finally looked around the table and saw that everybody was having a great time. They were laughing, talking, reminiscing. And I finally kind of gave myself a dope slap and said, you know, this isn't about the roast. This is about people getting together. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. It's also important to take time for yourself. A very important mindfulness practice is from time to time during the course of a day, especially if things are getting stressful, take yourself out of it. Get to a quiet place. Sit down, be comfortable, even if it's only for 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Close your eyes, take some deep breaths. If you want to listen to some quiet music, that's fine. But concentrate on your breathing and try as best you can to keep yourself in the moment and not worry about what happened just a few minutes before or what may be happening in the future. Try and stay present. It's very, very effective in centering yourself and allowing you to go back to your daily routines in a much better frame of mind. Another thing that I think is very important and I would really recommend, and there's a lot of science actually to back it up, and that's keeping gratitude lists. I would urge people to consider between now and the end of the year, taking some time during the day, not a lot of time, but jotting down and actually writing down, not just thinking about it, but writing down things for which you're grateful. On that particular day. It may be something large about family and friends. It may be something as minor as a gorgeous sunrise in the morning, but something that you're thankful for. And keep the list. And I would recommend that periodically during this period of time, you look back and read past lists. And what's happened in terms of the effect that lists have, There are lots of beneficial health, both physical and mental health benefits that have been demonstrated through many, many studies about keeping a gratitude list. So at least for the rest of the year, I would suggest that might be very helpful in keeping you centered during the holidays. And I guess the final thing is it's important to use technology wisely during this time. And by wisely, I mean sometimes not utilizing it, not going to the news all the time, which is one thing I'm always fighting myself personally. Things are going to be the same whether we know what the news is or not. We know that a month from now, Joe Biden's going to be president. We know that the stimulus package has finally been passed. We can put things aside and not be so obsessed with the news, at least for this period of time during the holidays. And you can utilize technology to keep in touch with people, people that may be far away. At Thanksgiving, we had a computer laptop perched at the end of the table, and a friend of ours who was eating alone was online with us while we were eating at the table. And it was a whole lot nicer for her and certainly nicer for us to keep connected. And you can utilize technology for just making you laugh or making you happy. You can go online and very easily find the final scene in It's a Wonderful Life, or the final scene in A Christmas Carol, or one of my favorites, which is Vera Ellen and Danny Kaye dancing to The Best Things Happen While You're Dancing during White Christmas. But we can use these things to help alleviate the stress and the aloneness and the tension and anxiety and depression that many of us might be experiencing otherwise through the holidays. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you about it.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much. And we just had a couple brief updates from Angela, and before she does so, I do want to thank her and her staff for keeping this bar talk bar program going and making it work. And thank you to President-elect Kelly McDonald, who's coming on board January 1st. You've got a great team to work with. All right, Angela.
Thank you, Thad. Thanks for all your leadership this year. We all appreciate it very much. Thanks to our guests today and our attendees. As you can see, we have our gratitude down there at the bottom of the slide for the day. And business side updates, not really a change from last week. So just remember that there is no bar talk next Monday. We are going to try to enjoy some time with our families. And I wish you all happy holiday season.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you, everyone. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela.